It's a pleasure to welcome to studio international affairs analyst Dan Perry, author of the newsletter Ask Questions Later and the former Europe and Middle East editor at the Associated Press, and security analyst Jonathan Regev. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here. So I want to start with Qatar itself. Financiers, host to terror, mediators potentially straddling these dubious roles all at once, an ally to the United States, and all of this unfolding right now as we wait to see confirmation about exactly how effective those strikes in Doha actually were. Your concerns, your thoughts?
I don't believe anything being said right now because we have to be honest, there's a big mystery here. It is very hard to contemplate that Israel would have attacked in Qatar, which is a U.S. ally, which hosts the largest U.S. airbase for 1 million miles around, whose skies are basically controlled by the U.S. without coordinating with the U.S. Yet we are expected to believe more or less that that's what happened. On the other hand, if they did coordinate with the U.S., maybe not in time, maybe not through the best channels, but if they did coordinate with the U.S., as it seems they would have to do, that almost guarantees the U.S. would tip off the Qataris, who would tip off the Hamasniks, which also might be what happened, dooming the operation to fail. None of it makes any sense. But if indeed Israel attacked in Qatar without letting the U.S. know, that is very, very brazen, puts the U.S. in an impossible position of having prevented two allies from fighting, and very much endangers Israel's drive for an expansion of the Abraham Accords and so forth, not because the UAE and Saudi Arabia really care about Qatar, but because public opinion in the Arab world is not irrelevant, and this appears to have humiliated Qatar unless they were somehow involved. Another low possibility contingency that we can't completely rule out. But I'll say this: Netanyahu is being extremely disingenuous when he claims that he would go after terrorists wherever they may be. When the European Union and others express outrage here, it's not because they don't want Hamas leaders to be killed. I mean, maybe in some cases, but that's not really the issue. The issue is that this is a violation of the sovereignty of a country that whatever one can say of that country, sponsors terror, whatever, they also do other things. Like they have a Georgetown University campus in Qatar and over $1 trillion worth of investments in the U.S. It's a sovereign country that Israel attacked. Would Netanyahu really attack terrorists wherever they are if they were in Turkey? Not so sure. What if they were in France? I'm pretty sure he wouldn't. So the issue here is a violation of the sovereignty of Qatar. Very disingenuous to ignore that. Almost impossible to explain how it could be that this even came about in a manner that where a day later we don't know if the U.S. knew about it or if Israel risked that its planes should be shot out of the sky by Americans. It's manic. But what is for sure is that I don't want to condemn it because I'm aware of the fact that had it succeeded in wiping out the entire Hamas leadership, probably I would say it was a gamble worth taking. And that's just the truth. And you know what? I know Trump would. That he would be claiming credit for it. So I don't necessarily believe Trump, whatever he says. I'm fairly certain that if this had been as successful as the Israeli strike on Iran, despite the different circumstances that wiped out much of the military leadership and the nuclear scientist leadership of Iran, Trump waited a little bit, saw it was successful, and pretty much instantly took credit. And it wouldn't have blown me away if that's what would have happened here, and indeed what might still happen here if it turns out mysteriously that it was more successful than it appears at this moment.
So talk to us about the security concerns about what is unfolding right now. Who said yes? Who gave the green light to that strike to actually happen? Who turned a blind eye? What are your thoughts?
It's a very big question, as Dan said. Everything being said, we really do not know what to believe and what not to believe. The conspiracies circling here around the country are huge in the past 24 hours since this attack. What do we really know? We don't know.
But Jonathan, we can do an assessment of what is more likely. What is more likely? That Israel risked infuriating its primary benefactor, without whom there is no capacity to continue the war in Gaza, the U.S., or that everyone's lying to journalists?
Most probably Israel did tell the U.S. I don't think Israel would risk acting in an American ally without alerting the United States.
Netanyahu is not that stupid. He's not insane. That would be an act of craziness. But might Trump be lying right now? Is there precedent to that? Quite possibly so.
It's also quite possible all along they were on the very same page, and we'll find out more details in weeks and months, maybe years to come.
The Gaza Conquest Plan is built in a way in which the army defines as a modular. What does that mean? It means that it can be stopped at any time if an agreement is reached. Very big question as to who you can reach with an agreement. If the top negotiators and the top officials of the other side may have been killed or are hiding because they're afraid they might be killed. So who do you negotiate with? But that's another question. As far as Israel is concerned, this is happening. The attack is happening practically every day. The IDF spokesperson in the Arabic language releasing statements saying, calling the residents to head south, promising them that in the area of what is known as the Mawasi next to Khan Yunis, there's food, there's shelter, there's even field hospitals. There, at least as far as what Israel is transmitting outside, it seems as if this attack is imminent.
Dan Perry, there's the military pressure Jonathan Regev is outlining right now. We just heard a short while ago in the show, the French president is working to help get some kind of a deal. The US president is also meeting with hostage families, working to try and get some kind of a deal. How do you see it unfolding? What is it going to take to get the hostages back home?
The hostages could be back home tomorrow if Israel agreed to end the war. And that has more or less been the case for almost 2 years. The trouble is this leaves Hamas in power in Gaza. Israel is seeking a surrender by Hamas, which I think the entire world would love to see. I would love to see it. The European Union has called for this. The US is calling for this. The Arab League called just over a month ago on Hamas to disarm. Israel's only asking for what everyone wants. But as of this moment, Hamas is willing to return the hostages in exchange for an end to the war and not to have this takeover of Gaza City, and is also willing, I believe on record, to hand over the keys of Gaza to the Palestinian Authority, but is not willing to disarm. They want to remain a militia undermining the authority of the Palestinian Authority or whatever else civilian force takes over Gaza.
Sounds like Hezbollah to me.
Exactly, Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, Israel is rightly not prepared for this.
Because then what happened on the 7th of October will simply happen again.
It might not, but it's not a good scenario for anyone, including for the Palestinians. So the only question on the table today really is how to get Hamas to also agree to disarm. Not so simple. I don't think invading Gaza City is necessarily the way to do it. Who knows? Maybe a year from now, what remains of Hamas will somehow surrender, but more likely as a prolonged multi-year insurgency of the kind that the Americans faced in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and which would be unbelievably costly, would involve Israel not only continued international delegitimization, but huge costs to have a military administration that will house and feed and provide welfare to millions of Palestinians. It is probably not as good an outcome or a strategy as what I've been recommending, which is indeed end the war, save the hostages, and then condition the reconstruction of Gaza on Hamas disarming. Just condition all of it. And indeed, allow Palestinians who want to leave this tent city, which is what remains of Gaza, to leave if Hamas doesn't disarm. And let's see if under such pressure, with the entire planet, including most Palestinians demanding it, Hamas continues to resist. On the military side, with an invasion of Gaza, they probably actually will for another prolonged period.
And that's a wrap for now for this edition of The Rundown.